Make sure you count the shadows. Hello everyone, I'm Papa Kenn and welcome to episode 40 of Discovering Doctor Who. Now today the episodes I'm going to be talking about are Silence in the Library and Forest of the Dead. And oh my god. I'm just going to warn you all, of course you can probably already see by the timestamp on this, but this is probably going to be a pretty long video for reasons that, unlike most of my longer episodes, is mostly for the good. I have a lot of good to say about this episode, but obviously I'll go over my full thoughts on it at the end, but let's get right into it because like I said, this is going to take a little while. My first favorite part about this episode was the introduction. Just this session of this little girl, Dr. Moon, the girl's father, and the library, and we get to see, you know, basically the library is inside this girl's mind, and just she's able to go to different places by wishing about it. And I don't know, I just found that really fascinating. And then all of a sudden, you know, the little girl's really scared, and the Doctor and Donna come in, and it's just like, oh, hello, how are you? That, the way they framed that introduction, perfect, absolutely perfect. And then when it you know, kind of comes back around and we get back to the point in the story that occurred, and you know, we see that introduction was a flashback. That's how you do flashbacks in a well-written, good story. Now admittedly, in the previous episode the flashbacks were done for comedy, they were silly, and that's fine. But a true dramatic flashbacks, unlike the, which episode was it? It was near the finale of last season, basically. Oh, it was after Utopia, when they land on, when the Doctor, Martha, and Jack all land on Earth, and then it flashes back. That wasn't well done, but this is how you do a flashback. Just perfect. It was so well done. Moving on, my second favorite part about this episode, spoilers! Now, first of all, yes, I now know why everyone in the comments loves to use spoilers, other than the fact that, obviously, we don't want to talk too much about spoilers as far as upcoming episodes, because I want to stay at least, you know, mostly blind to this stuff, even though I do know a few things as far as what's coming up. But just the use of spoilers throughout the episode, River's song, the Doctor. Well, actually the first mention of it was from the Doctor when Donna was getting ready to read one of the books, and he says, spoilers? I'm sorry if I offended anyone that speaks British, right? I just said. But that was just the use of it throughout the episode from beginning to end. Wonderful. And it honestly, for those of you that are in the comments, that especially those that are, you know, regular communicators and you love to use the little spoilers line, I have a whole new appreciation for that. So, you know, I'm sure it's going to continue from here on as the, you know, as Discovering Doctor Who goes on, but just the one word spoilers used by different characters and so in different ways just really was wonderful for these two episodes. I absolutely loved it. Every time I heard that word, I couldn't help but crack a smile and chuckle a bit. One, for the context of the episode, and obviously you all in the comments. But my third favorite part about this episode, and I don't know exactly specifically how to refer to it, but basically encapsulating all of these into one. The darkness, the shadows, aka the Vashta Nerada. These villains or these antagonists, because I guess they aren't technically villains. When I saw that episode Blink last season, that was easily one of the most creepy and terrifying things I'd ever seen, emphasized by the jump scares, because those were really well executed jump scares. Yeah, that episode was also written by Stephen Moffat, who wrote these 2 episodes. The Vashta Nerada, the way they work in this episode. Now, admittedly, in some ways they aren't as scary, at least in the way they're portrayed. Because, I mean, it was kind of funny to see, like, the Doctor throw a chicken leg, and then whoosh, all of a sudden it's bare bone. That was interesting, not exactly scary just by itself until you take into account what happens later. But just the idea that there are these millions and millions of these things everywhere on this planet. And they can be in any shadow. They can be any shadow. Not all of them, which I'll actually revisit in a little while, but it could be any shadow. And that's a foreboding and terrifying idea that is just so well done. And the aspect of counting the shadows. If you have more than one shadow, you're basically dead. That, oh, so good, so creepy. And then even at the beginning when the Doctor and Donna are running away from the lights that are going out, that was insanely tense. Like, just watching that, like, you know, I'm watching it on TV and seeing the lights click off, and it's just like, oh my god. And you know, I kept expecting to see, like, you know, these shadowy figures or something in the distance, like, you know, something there, but no, they have no physical form really, which just added to the terror and that foreboding feeling. And then finally, when they would take over someone or they would consume someone within the suit, that was inside the suit, and they basically become a zombie of sorts. And even though, I mean, the skeletons and the skulls looked, at first glance, looked kind of hokey, it really added to this effect, like the practical effect of just, you know, this is not anything humans. Like, their body, other than the bones, are gone. These bodies are being completely controlled by these living shadows. And it was just so good. Just the Vashta Nerada, I have no idea at all if they're going to reappear later in the series or not. To the best of my knowledge, I haven't heard of any other episodes that include them, unlike the Weeping Angels. But who knows, even if they haven't yet, with what's going on in the 8th season, they could make a reappearance. It's hard to say, but just such good antagonists for this episode. Really well done. Now, my 4th favorite part of this episode, and it sort of goes back to the introduction a little bit, but overall, and it's Dr. Moon, the little girl whose name I can't remember, Dr. Moon, the girl, and the cameras. And the little girl, and I'll sort of expand on this throughout more of the video too, but just, she's such a sweet, innocent little girl, and throughout what's going on, you can tell that she's trying really hard to help out, to, like, you know, keep things structured. She's trying to save people. And then Dr. Moon, at first, near the end of Silence in the Library, I was just like, okay, this is really creepy, because he's telling this little girl that only she can save the people in the library, and the library is a place of nightmares, and that's real, and what she's experiencing, the real world, is not real. And that was just like, watching that scene, one, it was kind of confusing at first, but it was just like, holy crap, that's a lot to drop on a little kid. And then the cameras themselves, when the Doctor and Donna see the little floating orb camera, and that's the way that she views the library, which before in the introduction we saw like a little projection of her, basically. But she sees them through these security cameras, and then when the Doctor tries to like uses his sonic on the camera, it starts hurting the little girl, so she's directly connected to all of that in a way that, I mean, one, she can communicate through them through the little digital reader, and also, like, anything that happens to these cameras, it actually hurts her. It can debilitate her. And that was just so very interesting. And then as far as Dr. Moon goes, later, before we learn the full truth about him, it's just like, you start to wonder, is Dr. Moon a bad guy? Because he'll appear here or there, which actually I'll get into that a little bit more because it has more to do with what I'm going to be discussing later. My next favorite part about this episode, number 5, is Professor River's song. Now, some of you in the comments have referred to one of the best characters / most unnerving characters, or maybe aggravating, in the entire series and the entire show is coming up, and I can only assume that's Professor River's song. And I really like her. I really liked her from the beginning to the end. Just a great personality, very in your face. Donna didn't know what to think of her for quite a bit of it, and she completely took the Doctor off guard for obvious reasons. Like, she knows him from the future, and that was the Doctor's first time actually meeting River Song, which, and I will admit that this is one thing that I do know a bit about the future of Doctor Who. I know that she, you know, will be in the, I guess the 11th Doctor's run here or there. I don't know how often, I don't know the details of it, but I do know that she appears there. So I did know at least a little bit about her leading up to it, but it was just really interesting to see the way they played off of each other both. It's like, you know, with the Doctor not knowing who this woman was, and it's like, you know, not trusting her at all until a little bit later, which I think is something that I will mention later. Yes, it is something I'll mention later. But that was just, I really like her character, and honestly, I'm looking forward to seeing more of her in the future. Now, my next favorite part about this episode, number 6, Donna. Just basically everything she does. For now, I'll just refer to the first episode, but as usual, the way her and the Doctor play off of each other, it's funny, it's well done. The way she treats, what's the character's name? Miss Evangelista, is like, you know, she treats her like a normal person, unlike these other crew members who basically treat the girl like she's a nuisance, like she's an idiot. And even the, you know, Miss Evangelista herself believed that. But just having, like, the way Donna treated her, the way she was, and Donna basically taking control, like when they were trying to get through the door, is like, you know, she basically just knocked the door open. Just as usual, more and more about Donna, just like the more I see her, the more I come to appreciate her as a character, and the more I really enjoy her. She is, honest to God, just an absolute amazing character. And I'll talk about her a little bit more coming up, because like I said, there's a lot to talk about. Now, this one was just personally for me, but my 7th favorite part about this episode was the flying books. It's after the Doctor was able to get a little bit of communication with the little girl through the TV, and then she starts messing with the remote, and all the books start flying out, and it's a very, almost like they're in a ghost house. Well, a little bit more literally than they already were. But it was just really interesting. For some reason, that part cracked me up. It's probably just meaningless in the grand scheme of things, but just watching the way everyone reacted, and the Doctor's like, I didn't do that, that's not me. And just, you know, all the books flying off the shelves, that cracked me up, and I really enjoyed that. Now, my 8th favorite part about this episode, and easily one of the creepiest, data ghosting, or, well, data ghost slash ghosting, as they refer to it. And that was another part of, like, you know, Donna's interaction in this in the first episode that really got to me. Just the idea that these inventions, these communicators, which essentially just look like, you know, shiny versions of the wireless earbuds that we have for a lot of our cell phones now. Excuse me. Just the way that, you know, person's mind waves can get caught up in there, and they still have, at least at first, a form of consciousness, but then it starts to deteriorate. And when Donna was talking to the girl, and the girl's mind waves at that point were asking that, she not tell the others about her being stupid because they would laugh. And then the repeat, and that part gave chills up my spine, and you could tell that Donna was getting more and more upset as it kept repeating, but like I said, that was just the deterioration of what was left of her, which actually I think that maybe I did write it. Oh, I did write this down. My 9th favorite part about this episode was actually at the end when her ear chip, whatever it was basically reaching its last part. She starts repeating, ice cream, ice cream, ice cream. And like on the captions it says ice cream, like, the delicious treat. But then I watched it again without the captions because something just felt off. And so I watched that segment again without captions, and I swear, if not having seen that it said ice cream, to me it sounds like I scream. The letter I followed by scream. Ice cream. Ice cream. Ice cream. And it's giving me chills right now just thinking about that aspect. And that just, it added a whole different level of horror for me. Just like this very dark, deep feeling in the pit of my stomach. Just, who knows where all this is gonna go? What's gonna happen from here? This girl just got completely stripped of her flesh and everything else down to a skeleton in seconds. And even her suit was just torn to shreds. It was it's easily one of the most powerful and creepy parts of that episode. Now, my next favorite part of these episodes was Proper Dave. Poor Proper Dave is the first one to fall victim to having his, well, other than Miss Evangelista, but the first one that basically has the slow death when he gets to Shadows. And it felt really bad because, it's sad at first because, he's like not a very well-developed character, obviously, but, he was a nice guy, and then all of a sudden, just he's completely zombified, and you see the skull appear in the visor, and the ghosting repeats over and over. It's like, hey, who turned out the lights? Hey, who turned out the lights? And just this very, stiff zombie-like walk as the Vashta Nerada took over his suit. Not even necessarily him, but took over his suit. Just, I don't know, I felt really bad for him and the characters that also get consumed near the end. It's just like, some of them go quickly, others take, they last a little bit longer, supposedly. Like Anita, but yeah, that was just that just I really liked the way that was done, and even though we don't have a strong personal connection with these characters, I was able to empathize with them and it's like, feel really sorry. And it's like the doctor says, like as soon as he notices it, he's just like, I am so sorry, I am so sorry. And it's just one of those things where, the person is doomed. What else can you do for them? But anyway, moving on. My next favorite part about this episode, number 11, the Doctor's Sonic. And this part really surprised me. Because not only does the Doctor have his sonic screwdriver, but then all of a sudden, Professor River Song pulls out hers, and apparently it's a modified version of the one the Doctor currently has. It's been changed around some, and it looks like it has a little trigger or something like that. And it looks kind of cool, to be quite honest. But I just found that really interesting. And, as we go on more and more in the episode, we find out the connection with the Doctor and River Song. And why in the world, as he says, he doesn't give his screwdriver, his sonic, to anyone. And I think she says, I'm not anyone, or I'm not just anyone. And then we learn more and more about well, at least to a point, more details of who she really is, leaving a little bit more to be implied. But I really like that, and it actually adds another possible choice for a sonic screwdriver I might get. Thank you all for the suggestions from last week, but right now I'm still torn, and just throwing another one into the mix just doesn't make it any easier. But moving on, my next favorite part about these episodes was, well, what was the exact phrase? The exact phrase in the episodes were 4,022 saved, no survivors. So basically boiling that down to, it's like saved, comma, no survivors. And like, I started to make that connection before it was even really brought up in the episode itself, but it makes complete sense. It's like the computer itself saved all of these people. Like, obviously we figure out the details of, like, you know, why it did what it did, and what exactly occurred later on, but it saved all these people. So there's a good chance that all of the faces we had seen on these little kiosks or whatever, the people's faces talking, were like people that had just been saved. Like, they had been saved, whatever it was, 100 years ago, which is only confirmed when, after the Doctor transports Donna onto the TARDIS, and she just starts screaming and, like, looks like she's getting enveloped by this darkness. And immediately I thought, oh my god, the Vashta Nerada have gotten her. Is that how you pronounce it? Vashta Nerada? Yeah, close enough. But like, I immediately thought, oh my god, they just killed her off. Why would they do that? And that, I was honestly scared there for a second. And then when Donna's face appears on one of the little kiosks, like I said, that was only confirmed the aspect of these people were saved. So at that point I was just like, okay, so she was saved in a sense, but hasn't survived. So at that point I was just like, okay, she's dead apparently. But obviously that's not exactly what happens. I'm not going to go into full detail on that. If you haven't watched the episode already, why are you watching this? But, and maybe I'm actually talking in circles here, a little bit of gibberish, but just that right there. People saved, but not blank saved, no survivors. Just the way that was used throughout the 2 episodes was just really well done, and led for a really effective twist in the end, I felt. Now, my next favorite part about these episodes, number 13, would be Donna's life. And, you know, obviously not her, you know, full life before all of this occurred and everything, but her life within the computer. What she thinks at that point is the real world, but in actuality is not. And it was at this point that I was really like, is Dr. Moon a bad guy? Because he kept leading her to believe that all these little time skips were like just blanks in her memory, like she would basically black out. And he kept repeating something, and then you remembered. And either he or Donna herself would fill in the blanks. And even going on from that, Donna meets this, you know, guy that she really likes. How does she put it later? Beautiful man who can barely even talk. And I thought that was really funny. But it's like all these good, wonderful things that are happening to her. She has 2 kids in this world, even though it's like it just takes place over a very short period of time. In actuality, in her mind, she's living a lifetime. And for that to get ripped away in the end, it's just, Catherine Tate did a really good job of portraying that loss and that confusion of what was going on in her life. Like, whether things were real or not. Like when the doctor all of a sudden appears in front of her and she starts to be like, okay, what's going on? I saw. And then Dr. Moon brings her back out of that and talks her into basically, you know, oh, it's just like, you know, you're just hallucinating or something like that. It was whew, just a whole lot goes into that, and it was, I mean, just on Catherine Tate alone, just wonderfully portrayed just the entire process through that, which I'll actually get into a little bit more here in a minute. But my next favorite part about these episodes, number 14, was River Song's secret, which we later find out is the only way she can get the Doctor to trust her is when she whispers in his ear, and we find out later that she knows his name. We don't get to learn his name, but she knows his name. And then we find out later, well, it's left pretty vague, but the Doctor says, like, there's only one reason I would anyone would know my name, which I take to imply that apparently in the future, River Song and I assume the 11th Doctor get married, or basically they're in love. Now, obviously that's a long way off, so don't ruin it for me if that's actually what happens, but like, that's just kind of mind-blowing with all the different, like, the idea of loves. Like, the closest we've really come to that in the show was with Rose. And Rose, I mean, you know, just based on the stuff that we've learned since then, Rose really didn't know all that much about the Doctor. I mean, there's infinitely more stuff, an infinite amount of more stuff for her to have learned. So, I don't know, it's kind of crazy when I just kind of stop to think about it. So I won't stop to think about it, I'll move on. My next favorite part about the episodes, number 15, was when we finally see again Miss Evangelista / the cloaked figure, because in Donna's world we see this cloaked figure moving away, and she leaves a message for Donna one night to meet her at the park. And I don't know, I thought that was really well done, because at first when I saw the cloak moving away, I was just like, okay, so are the shadows in her world, or is this like the shadows' weird way of messing with their prey? Like, I was really confused at that point. And then we see Miss Evangelista reveal her face, which was all deformed, and from what my wife said, she said that was one of the creepiest parts of this two-parter, was the face. And it wasn't so much for me, as I'll explain a little bit later, but it was just the way they handled that, and the way that her personality almost completely changed from when she was the dumb, cute person to the ugly and, well, as she puts it, unloved, very intelligent person. I'm kind of thinking that's kind of a part that bugs me about these episodes, but I won't dwell on that too much. Just basically, the way that she comes into the story, especially in the second episode, was really interesting, and just a part of it that was it was powerful in the end, especially when it brought up something that the kids say later, which I'll actually hit on that in just a few minutes as well. Now, my next favorite part about these episodes was number 16, when we find out that all of the books, or at least a large portion of the books in that library, were made from the trees of the forest that the Vashta Nerada lived in, that their home, where basically they spawned from. And just, I mean, that on one hand, that sends sort of a subtle message of, you know, like deforestation, destroying wildlife, and when that happens, either the wildlife dies out or it adapts, which can lead to sort of infestations of sorts. It's just like, on one hand there's that, but then also just the idea that all of these things occurred, all of these shadows, the Vashta Nerada, all of this killing happened because of human involvement. The humans came, they tore down, they ripped up the trees, they made the books they made the paper that made the books within this gigantic library, this planet that is a library, the library. So yeah, that was just, and I mean, it's the hunting ground for the Vashta Nerada at that point. So why wouldn't they swarm the library if that was at that point their forest? Because essentially everything around them is their forest in the guise of the books. So, oh yeah, that was a really interesting twist, and honestly, one that I wasn't expecting, despite the fact that the episode's title is Forest of the Dead. So it's like making that connection was really cool. Now, my next favorite part of these two episodes, number 17, the children. As I said before, I was going to get onto this, but one, when they were at the park and Miss Evangelista points out all the kids to Donna, and all of the kids are the same. One boy, one girl for each little family, and all of them were the same person. Now, when they did this, I don't know if they just sort of did some camera tricks with two kids playing around, or if it was like, maybe they had a couple of twins running around, like two twin boys, two twin girls, running around and doing that. But that was mind-blowing. I really like the way that was done, and the intense music that occurs at that portion is well justified. Like, excuse me. Just that scene right there was hard to take in. And then later, when the kids are asking Donna if they're real, like, was the woman right? Are they not real? Just that conversation right there, and the kids realizing that they're not real, they're just part of a computer program. Well, they don't realize that part, but they don't actually exist. Despite Donna's insistence that, yes, they are real, because they're her kids, and they are her kids, but my God, that was just such a mind-bending aspect to the two episodes. Well, especially that last episode, but to this two-parter. I can't imagine what something like that would would be like to go through, especially if I was in a state where I honestly believed that what was occurring at the time was my real life. All of the strangeness and the mysteries aside. Like I said, I just don't know what that would be like to go through, and hopefully I never will. But that was just the aspect of the children was just such a powerful aspect of this two-parter. Now, my next favorite part about this episode, or these episodes, was when we find out who Cal is, or what Cal is, which is the little girl. Now, I can't remember the girl's full name. It's the Cal, or is C-A-L, is basically her initials. But, I mean, she is essentially the core of the computer. She is the reason why Dr. Moon was telling her that only she can save those people is because she's the one in charge of the entire library. She has the ability to save people, to save their bodies, and like save their minds as a part of this computer. And it explains why when she was like opened or closed her eyes, she was able to see through the cameras, because those cameras are directly connected to the computer. And I'm over explaining this and probably explaining it wrong, so I won't hit on that too much. But once that reveal was finally made, I thought it was really intriguing. I thought that it was really well done, and there was a point where I kind of suspected that she was Cal, or she was a vital part of Cal. So it wasn't a huge twist in that regard, but it was definitely still, like, once it was actually revealed, it was just like, oh my God. But yeah, moving on. My next favorite part about these episodes, number 19, River Song Sacrifice. And that whole scene was heart-wrenching. It's like I've only gotten to know the character over 2 episodes, but her personality, her future / past with the Doctor was very intriguing, and something that I'm looking forward to, in future episodes. But that when the Doctor basically comes out and says, there's only one way that she would know his name. And, again, leaving it vague, but implying that they're in love or they're married. Just that whole sacrifice, and mm, that was just a really powerful and truly sad moment. Again, despite the fact that I haven't gotten to know much about the character, but just taking into account her connection to the Doctor. The fact that she was doing this to save him and make sure that he could live on to meet them. That was just so good. And, you know, before that, like, because the Doctor is being stubborn and refuses to let her sacrifice herself, she knocks him out, which was pretty funny. I have to, well, not even funny. It was just like, it was pretty cool, I have to admit, just to see her sock the Doctor in the face, which very few people have done throughout this entire show that I've seen so far. And to see her do that and getting an idea of who she is, it says a lot about her. It really does. But, well, and then even the way that her sacrifice affects the Doctor, that was just... I can't put it into words, really. Any words I try to put to it just won't work. My next favorite part about these episodes, number 20, the download. This is basically, it's like inside the computer, in Donna's world. Like, everything is turning, well, this is actually the self-destruct sequence, I guess, but when everything gets downloaded, everything starts turning white and disappearing. And, like, the world just is basically disappearing around her, which has to be horribly traumatic in the grand scheme of things. But just the download itself was both beautiful and kind of terrifying at the same time. Because, you know, from Donna's perspective, the man that was her husband, was he real? Was he one of the people that was saved? Or was he just a figment of her imagination / a figment of the computer program itself? What is it, basically? But actually, then that leads into my next favorite part, number 21, the missed opportunity. When we find out that Donna has been looking all around with all these people, all 4,022 people have been recovered. They're out of the computer, and you know, she's looking around trying to find the guy that she was married to. And Donna and the Doctor start walking off, and we see this glimpse of her husband from the computer, the guy that was her husband in that world. And with his stutter, he's like, and before he can even try to get anything out, just teleportation, and he's gone. So I personally call that the missed opportunity, and it's really sad because they obviously loved each other in reality, because he remembered her and she remembered him. So yeah, that was just, that was really sad. And I guess in a way too, it's like the doctor says he's all right, and the Donna says, well, you must be pretty, well, paraphrasing, you must be pretty bad off because I'm all right too. It just shows like they have that close connection. They're able to empathize with each other. I really like that. Now, my next, we're coming down to the final stretch here, I swear. My next favorite part about this episode, number 22, One Last Run. When the Doctor finds what was it, the little communicator that still has the echo of River Song in it, and the Doctor says, one last run, and he's booking it to try and get to the computer, and just that entire segment with River narrating over it, absolutely beautiful, so intense. It was it's one of the most emotional segments from my perspective that this show has had, and these episodes overall had a lot of those, had some of the best segments in my opinion. But just that run, and then getting to the computer and putting her old screwdriver up to the so she could download into the system, so beautiful, so absolutely wonderful. And from there, when River Song ends up in the computer and she gets to meet the little girl and Dr. Moon, who wasn't a bad guy, he was doing his job, which, you know, just was a crazy, like, just going around and around. Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Is he a good guy? He was neither. He was a neutral party trying to do the right thing. And yeah, just all of that was just so well done, so well written, well acted by everyone. And that brings us to my final favorite part of these 2 episodes. Just that moment where, from earlier, River Song had mentioned that the Doctor could snap his fingers and the TARDIS would open. The Doctor said the TARDIS doesn't work that way, so the Doctor tries it and it works. And that was just such a good moment. That was such a wonderful moment. And then he snaps his fingers again and the doors close. And it was a bittersweet and yet happy and yet sad ending. So good. So very good. Now, obviously, from all the positives I've had to say about this episode, you might think that I have quite a few annoyances to mention. When this was all over, I asked my wife if she had any issues with the episodes. She couldn't think of any. So, honestly, I did think of one, possibly 2, if I can remember it. I didn't write it down. Because I couldn't think of anything. So the one that I actually do have written down is a huge nitpick. So the one annoyance I have with this episode is the computer graphics and the way they did Miss Evangelista's face within the computer. I thought it looked kind of goofy, while my wife thought it looked creepy. Now, I'm trying to think if there was anything else. But honestly, okay, there is one more annoyance, and it's a little bit bigger, but again, mostly a nitpick. If there were millions upon millions of life forms of the Vashta Nerada on this planet, millions upon millions, everywhere, then seemingly, if the characters were even like partially in the dark, one would think that the Vashta Nerada would be getting to them like almost instantly, and they wouldn't have stood a chance at all. So I guess there was just sort of that gap in logic for me. Like, although, like, you know, they just kind of went after one person at a time, seemingly it could have, like, the Vashta Nerada could have taken them all basically at once. But then obviously it would be a very short 2-parter, and the show wouldn't still be going on, I assume. But yeah, that was just very... Not really very. That was just like a slight second annoyance I have with these 2 episodes. And really, that's it. If you all have any other annoyances you'd like to voice, and maybe I'm just, in a way, sort of biased because there was so much about these episodes that I really enjoyed, please let me know below. Let me know some of the issues you might have had, because honestly, I can't think of anything else. Those 2 nitpicks are basically it. Now, before I get into my final thoughts on this very long video, the quote of the episode, episodes, I apologize, and it's actually from essentially the very beginning of the 2-parter in Silence in the Library, and it's when the Doctor finds out that they're in biographies, and the quote is this: "This must be the biographies. I love biographies." Donna says, "Yeah, very you. Always a death at the end." The Doctor says, "We need a good death. Without death, there'd only be comedies. Death gives us sides." And, I mean, what else can I say? That gives a whole lot of meaning. It really encapsulates both of these episodes. It's a huge focus on death. And it basically... Oh my god. I get what you all were talking about in the comments now. The song must come to an end. When the Ood mentioned in the previous episode, your song will be coming to an end soon. Your song, the Doctor's song, Doctor's River song. Oh my god, I just now put that together. Oh, you all are probably going to be laughing at me right now, since I literally just made that connection. Because I was looking at the comments and I was just like, okay, the song's coming to an end. Boom, just hit me. Now, as for my overall final thoughts about these 2 episodes, it should come as no surprise I absolutely loved it. I think that this two-parter, putting it into one episode, probably maybe not my absolute favorite episode of all time, but definitely in the top 3. Just from beginning to end, it was so well done. Again, so well written, so well structured, with truly foreboding, scary bad guys. Antagonists, that's the word I was looking for. It was just, if the absolute worst I can come up with in 2 episodes are 2 nitpicks. Obviously, I think a lot of them. And, just all the characters, even the side characters, like, they were well acted. Donna, from beginning to end, just everything she goes through is intense. What the Doctor goes through is intense. His little arc with River Song, meeting River Song and then meeting her end. And then the whole aspect of spoilers for what is to come. Is so well done. And I really don't know any other way to put it. Just superbly, excellently done. And I don't know what is to come. I know people have a lot of issues with the show after Stephen Moffat takes over, but I don't know, in my opinion, I think these 2 episodes may have been what really influenced BBC or whoever it is in charge of those decisions to put him at the head writer position, because I don't know, I mean, and I don't know like how many editors helped him with these episodes exactly, but just these 2 episodes alone give me hope for the episodes that are to come. And I'll find out what I think of them when Stephen Moffat's time actually comes. But anyway, moving on from there, and trying to wrap up this very long episode, I do have one question, and you all may have been wondering why I didn't bring it up before, because I wanted to make you all squeal, because I'm very worried right now. And it's when Donna asks why, you know, River Song knows the Doctor, but River doesn't know Donna. She's heard of her. And Donna asks what happens to her in the future, both to River Song and to the Doctor. The Doctor doesn't know. And River just gives this look. I can't tell if it's of fear, sadness, terror. Well, actually, it looks like terror. So I don't know what's going to happen to Donna, but I will say this right now. I would say she is my favorite companion that has been on this show so far. So if something really bad happens to her, I'm going to be supremely pissed. Honestly, I'm going to be supremely pissed. So if a Dalek blows her away, something happens, I'm going to be so mad. So very mad. But I guess I have to wait and find out. And no one ruined that for me, because as with everything in this show, I need to find out what happens as it comes. No spoilers. Or as everyone in this episode said, spoilers. But anyway, everyone, thank you for joining me for this extra long episode of Discovering Doctor Who. Thank you all very much for sticking around. And as always, thank you for the comments you leave. Thank you for all the discussion. Thank you all for being civil and just having really good conversations that I enjoy reading. Even if I don't reply to them, I really enjoy those conversations, and you all are just making this a wonderful community for like others and myself to be a part of. So thank you, every single one of you. And I will see you all next time, either this Thursday or Friday, as long as I don't have any technical issues, for midnight. And I did catch a slight clip at the very beginning, so nothing has been ruined. Clip by the clip at the beginning, I mean, you know, obviously the previews at the end of the episode, but I will see you all then while I try and mellow down from the experience that was these 2 episodes. So again, everyone, I will see you next time for midnight, and until then, I'm Papa Ken. Out on Z!